And you folks see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Alrighty. Awesome. So let me just get myself situated. And so thank you, Cara. Thank you for inviting us today. And like she said, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Cassandra Moise, and today I am joined by Abby Marino, and we are with the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area. And today we will be going over what makes a species invasive and how to use iMapInvasives. Okay. So our team consists of Abby as our program manager, Cassidy is our conservation area manager, Melody is our early detection and rapid response manager. I, myself again, Cassandra is our education and outreach manager. And this summer, we are lucky to have Matt joining the team as our summer intern. And let's first get started with what is an invasive species. An invasive species is a species that is not native and whose introduction can cause or is likely to cause harm to the environment, economy, and or human health. For the most part, invasive species are introduced by people, and not all non-native species are invasive, but a small percentage of them are. And in this picture here, you see Phragmites that I think a lot of us are far too common, know way too well. And we usually find these on our shorelines, and it is a great example of an invasive species that has really been established here on Long Island. And so what is LIISMA, the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area? What do we do and how exactly do we do that work, right? So LIISMA is a partnership of organizations working together to prevent the spread of invasive species and protect local ecosystems in parts of New York City and on Long Island. So we basically cover Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau and Suffolk County, and LIISMA partners with over 30 governmental and non-governmental organizations, county agencies, towns, and a number of nonprofit organizations. LIISMA, oops, sorry. Too early. LIISMA is hosted by the nonprofit organization, the Long Island Native Plant Initiative. Most of you guys might know them as LIMPI. And major funding for LIISMA is provided by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund, and that is administered by the New York State DEC. So LIISMA is actually one of 8 regional partners for invasive species management, also known as PRISMs. And each section that you see there has a team similar to LIISMA that is entirely dedicated to invasive species management. And we collaborate with one another and on this common goal of limiting invasive species in our particular region. And all these different prisms that you see here are also contracted by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So our goal is to protect and restore Long Island's and New York City's most important natural and agricultural resources. So right here in this photo, you're looking at a picture of a rare coastal plain pond that's located in the Central Pine Barrens. And this is a wonderful example of a unique ecosystem that we're trying to conserve here on Long Island. So a little bit more about that later. And I'm not sure if you're familiar, if you know this yet, but Long Island is actually one of the most biologically diverse regions in all of New York State. Just on Long Island, we have streams, ponds, coastal grasslands, wetlands. And like I mentioned before, we have the Central Pine Barrens to the east, and we have a beautiful deciduous forest in the north. So we have a mix of all of these ecological communities all packed into this one island. And in this photo here in front of us, we see the pitch pine scrub oak barrens. It is a state and globally rare ecosystem. So that's something that we definitely can have pride in and something that it's worth conserving. So that's part of what we do here. And LIISMA has nearly 600 invasive species either already here or in the surrounding areas that can potentially be introduced. And on top of that, we have many potential conservation areas, which includes over 600 water bodies. And with that, we do have to prioritize our work because we can't get to everything. And and we still want to like create these tangible results on the ground. So we have to prioritize. And we do that in two ways: by invasive species and by site, or if the site is a priority conservation area. So a little bit more about the way we view priority conservation areas. We have more than 25 priority conservation areas that protects Long Island's most important ecosystems. And these priority conservation areas include 12 invasive species prevention zones. So those are the purple, I guess, blobs that you see on the screen right here. And these are large areas of large natural areas, excuse me, of high conservation value. So this is where invasive species management would be the most feasible and would offer the most benefit. And within these invasive species prevention zones, they're grouped into 6 larger ecologically connected invasive species complexes. So that's what you're seeing here in the orange indications here areas. And we also, on top of our complexes, we have other priority conservation areas, which include natural heritage sites such as the Hempstead Plains, and priority water bodies like the coastal plain ponds, like I mentioned before. So knowing that we have all these invasive species, we like to use an invasion curve. And the curve illustrates the relationship between the time a species has been present and the area it covers and the cost to control it. So as time passes and invasive species spreads, the cost and effort grow exponentially. And the curve really highlights this sweet spot that we have. Let me see if I can show you my little laser. We have this sweet spot here where it's like a limited window of opportunity where total eradication is actually possible. So we put a large emphasis on managing new infestations early when the cost is significantly cheaper and it's actually feasible. And to better help us categorize invasive species, we utilize the tier ranking list. And it basically categorizes each invasive species across the LIISMA region and all of New York State. And it puts these species into categories based off of their impact, location, abundance, distribution, and how feasible it is to respond to them. So just to help you get a better understanding where invasive species fall on this list, I'm just going to briefly review each tier. So let's start with tier 1. And tier 1 are for species that are not yet found in the LIISMA region. And these are species that we are basically... What happened?
I still see you in your slide, Cassandra.
Okay, you still see me? Okay, it just
Yep.
said I timed out. Is everyone still here?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna keep going. Sorry about that, guys. So tier 1 species are, did I say that? Yeah, tier 1 species are species that are not yet present in the LIISMA region. And these are species that we're basically keeping a radar on, and we're doing our best to raise public awareness and let folks know that to be on the lookout for these species. And these are things that we're actively looking on various survey platforms just to see where they are, if they are present. Next, we have our tier 2 species, which are species that are actually present in the LIISMA region, but are in low enough abundance that eradication is actually feasible. So if you remember the last slide, they fall in that window period where we can actually do something about it. And then we have our other higher tiers, like tier 3 and tier 4 species. And those have become so widespread that eradication is unlikely, and the goal shifts to containing these species. And containing them in the specific areas that they're already found and preventing them from reaching new habitats. And lastly, we have our M tier, which is these are for species that we're not really sure about their impacts yet. So these species require additional research, mapping, and monitoring so we can have a better understanding of their invasiveness. So That's basically the tiers list here. And all of this information is housed within the New York Natural Heritage Program. And their mission is to protect the state's biodiversity by tracking rare, threatened, and endangered species. And because invasive species are one of the biggest threats to these vulnerable species, the New York Natural Heritage Program also manages New York's official invasive species database. So right here, you'll see right here, you're looking at an example of what the tiers list looks like on their website. And here you'll be able to see like the species common name, the scientific name. And what I want to really point out to you here, we're going to use Asiatic sand sedge as a example of how a species can have one state ranking and how that ranking can vary based on the different regions that you're looking at. So for Asiatic sand sedge, excuse me, it is tiered as two, at least at the time of this screenshot. It may have changed since then, but at one point it was throughout the state ranked as a two, and you can see that other prisms don't even have it ranked yet or tiered yet. But I do want to point out that LIISMA would have this species ranked as like a three. So if you remember, that means that it is well established. And the Lower Hudson, our neighboring prism, has it as a tier one, and that's makes a lot of sense. So they have that species as a species that they're keeping their eye out for. And it makes sense because their neighboring prism, which is us, LIISMA, we have it ranked as a three. So it's pretty widespread for us, and for them, it's on their radar. So that's just an example. If you're interested in seeing more about the tier ranking list, definitely scan this QR code and you can see where different species are ranked based on the region that they're presently found or where they're actually not found yet. So great resource to have. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about invasive species, what makes them invasive, and why this actually matters. So I just want to review some terminology with you guys. And briefly, I'm just going to review native, non-native, and invasive species. So a native species, we like to think of them as species that have developed a mutualistic relationship with their environment over hundreds or even thousands of years. And next we have our non-native species. These are species that have been introduced to a new environment where they don't naturally exist, but they can have a beneficial or even neutral impact on their environment. So I like a great example of these species are crops, fruits and vegetables that are currently being grown in areas that they were never grown before. So those tend not to be invasive. So that's a great example of that. And I do want to point out that these terms like non-native and invasive cannot be used interchangeably. Though an invasive species is also non-native, it does have a few characteristics that sets it apart from non-native species. And these characteristics tend to lead to causing harm to the environment, economy, and or human health. So we'll talk a bit more about that later. But that's what most plants fall into these one of these categories. So yeah. And invasive species are primarily spread by human activity, oftentimes unintentionally, but people, goods, travel fairly quickly around the world, and unfortunately, they do carry unwanted guests. So invasive species can be introduced to an area by transportation vessels, firewood, animals, accidental release, and obviously by people. So insects can be transported easily in wood, shipping pallets, and crates. And ornamental plants can sometimes become invasive when they escape into a wild area. So what this basically looks like, let's say if you have a landscaped yard and you have your beautiful ornamental cultivars growing, and you so happen to live near a woodlot, and wildlife may eat the fruits of your ornamental plants and eventually deposit those seeds in your neighboring woodlot or park that might be nearby. And then eventually you'll start having those ornamental plants growing in a natural area where before they were more confined to your backyard or front yard. So that's an example of ornamentals, how we're starting to find ornamentals in wild and natural areas. And the release of unwanted pets is another way invasive species are spread. And for those of us working in ecology related fields, the most important impact of invasive species are the ecological ones. So the increase of competition for resources leads to degradation of habitats, which eventually will lead to an overall decrease of biodiversity and the resilience of that particular ecosystem. Ecological important places can become weakened and damaged. And this is especially important for those rare and endangered species I mentioned before. Those species may not be able to compete with invasive species and plants that tend to have more adaptaceous characteristics that allow them to, they're like generalists, they're able to adapt to new environments quickly. They tend to have aggressive growing patterns, which makes it tough for our native, rare, and endangered species to really compete with them. And that leads to us having a slew of ecological impacts. So to summarize, we see how invasive species touch nearly every aspect of the world, and they are one of the greatest threats to New York's biodiversity and agriculture and outdoor recreation. And before we learn how to map invasive species, let's go through some tips and tools that we like to use to help us identify them. So there are a handful of apps and websites that you can look to when you're learning plant and animal identification. And this includes iNaturalist, Seek, Picture This, and GoBotany. GoBotany is similar to your classic field guide, dichotomous keys type of situation. And on the other apps that I mentioned, use a combination of AI and community experts for species identification. So we definitely recommend using more than one of these tools simultaneously to confirm an ID, since not each one of these independently aren't 100% accurate. And I want to take a closer look at iNaturalist. iNaturalist is an online social network of people sharing biodiversity information and recording their observations of plants and animals using their iPhones. So you too can actually be a part of this community and use iNaturalist. And you do this by uploading multiple photos of a particular species. And these photos can include the flower, leaves, buds, and other plant parts. And from there, you can manually enter the species, what you possibly think the ID is, or you can use the AI suggested identification. And oftentimes, experts and enthusiasts will review your observation and add ID or confirm the observation that you made. And with enough community input, your reports can become research grade. And those research grade observations help professionals like LIISMA um, to track emerging invasive species. So if any of those observations captures an emerging invasive species, it helps us to redirect our focus in the future. And you can definitely learn more about the plants and animals that you're observing in any species in particular on iNaturalist. It's a great resource. Just simply by clicking on the name of the species, you see a whole bunch of information that can better help you understand the species. You can look at their seasonality, their life history, and other key identifiable features that the species has. So it's really helpful. And the best way to effectively get identify and observe and record invasive species is to take good photos. So when you're taking these photos, you really want to try to capture the key identifiable characteristics that that particular species has. And that doesn't mean you have to have a fancy camera. You just need to follow a couple of steps to kind of help you make sure that you capture all of those so we can help, so the platform can help you identify the species. So the images that you're seeing here actually come from iNaturalist's unidentified species page. So some of the pitfalls in these photos that kind of prevented them from coming up with a positive ID include that the image may be blurry or out of focus. It might be too zoomed in or too zoomed out. We're not really sure what we're looking at. And sometimes the photo might show too many organisms in one shot, and we can't really see what the focus is of the image. And in other cases, you're not showing enough angles. So in the case of this mushroom, we only have a picture of the top of the mushroom. And for better identification, you kind of need to get multiple angles, maybe the underside of the mushroom, something to help, really lock in that ID. So again, all of these are not the best photos for identification. And it is possible to positively get a positive ID through your pictures, but you do have to follow some of our guidelines. But before we get into that, I do want to point out, or at least remind folks, like to leave plants intact, especially if you found something that you only see one of. Maybe try avoid pulling it out of the ground. Just a note there. But moving on, if you have found a species that you would like to identify, the first step is to definitely isolate the species, if possible. Then try to use a reference object, such as your hand, a coin, or even keys to help us see the scale of it, like how large is the species. So like this image right here that has this coin, you can really see that we're looking at something quite small here. And if you are looking at images of aquatic species, you can try to use a solid colored container, such as a bucket, to put the organism inside put it inside and definitely add some water. And then from there, you could take multiple photos. Be sure to take pictures of the whole body, some close-ups to help us see some of the key features, like maybe like the flower or some coloring on the underside. And, for like mushrooms and shells, definitely take multiple photos of like the underside, the tops, multiple angles help out. And definitely utilize the notes section and provide more context to help the viewer understand what they're viewing. So right here, I like this note here that kind of says lots of this growing attached to litter, soil, mixed hardwood, and crabapple. So that kind of sounds like this person is describing the environment that they found this mushroom. And that can be a key part that's an identifier might need to help make an accurate identification. So basically, all of these photos are A-OK, and this is what we're looking for when you're trying to submit a photo to be identified and used in iNaturalist. So you can also use field guides to help you while you're out identifying species. Here are a few of field guides that we recommend for invasive species and native species. But there are a whole bunch of field guides for animals and specific groupings of plants out there. Like, for example, this is a field guide specifically for aquatic plants. So I only imagine that there is tons more out there. So these are wonderful references to have, and they're small enough that you can have it in your bag and ready just when you're out in the field. And also feel free to visit LIISMA.org, visit our website, and download our Emerging Invasive Species Guide. This is a fact sheet that points out the highest priority invasive species that we are currently on the lookout for. So these are technically our tier 1 species. So this is a great guide that shows an image and some identifiable tips of these species. So definitely feel free to go check that out on our website. And for even more information on emerging and widespread invasive species, definitely check out our website under the species tab to explore invasive species and learn where they fall on LIISMA's tier list. And now we're going to talk a little bit about reporting and mapping and how you can help us do that. So, mapping is quite important for several reasons. We utilize mapping technology to alert the right people like LIISMA and other governmental and non-governmental agencies and organizations to new infestations that appear. And we also use maps to track or prevent outbreaks and detect patterns, such as vectors of introduction, methods of transportation, as well as the distribution and abundance of a particular species. And maps are also a great way to keep track of your own observations, and you can refer back to them at your own convenience anytime you like. So mapping is a great practice, and I recommend more folks to get involved. And you can do that using iMaps. So one of the greatest ways you can do that is to use iMapInvasive. And IMAP is a online invasive species data management system and a mobile app that is easily accessible for everyone. And assists professionals like LIISMA, the DEC, and citizen scientists in tracking invasive species. So the common goal is to protect our natural resources from the threat of invasive species, and iNaturalist helps us do this by providing a standardized method of reporting invasive species that we can share throughout the entire state. And you do need an account to use iMaps, but setting up an account is quick and easy, I promise. So what you do need to do first is you would have to go to the NYIMapInvasives website and scroll to where it says create an account. And after you create an account, you put in all this good stuff, your name, your last name, email, and it's going to ask you for a jurisdiction. And basically that just means where are you planning on plotting points for where are you planning on looking for invasive species? And for our case, if you are located in New York State, you would select New York. And one important thing to point out here, you do have to, after you click join, you will receive an email to the email that you just signed up with. And it's important that you go to that email and you confirm your account and accept the user agreements. And once that's done, your account is activated and you can log in and start using iMapInvasives. So there are two ways to report invasive species through IMAP. And this includes the iMapInvasives mobile app, and it includes Survey 123 for iMapInvasives. So the iMapInvasive mobile app reports species as points, and it's quick and easy, very friendly way to use it. And Survey 123 reports species as points, lines, or polygons, and you're also able to record treatments. So Survey 123 for iMapInvasive is slightly more advanced, but still very streamlined and user-friendly. First, we're going to take a closer look at the mobile app, and then I'll hand it off to Abby, who will go over the Survey 123 aspect. So yeah, let's get started with the mobile app. So you can download iMapInvasives through the Google Play Store or through Apple's App Store. And it's simple, just type in iMapInvasive and you should see a logo like this. And up on the slide, I say connectivity is required. And I'm only saying that because it's easier to download an app when you do have internet connection. And I'm only highlighting that because this app, you can actually utilize it without internet connection. But it's just easier just to download the app when you do have Wi-Fi. So after you download the app, and the first thing you might see is the screen like this. So you just might see a blank screen. And what we're going to do is go to our main menu. So clicking this, what are these three horizontal lines? And we're going to click on this main menu button. We'll call it main menu button for the rest of this presentation. And you're going to scroll down to preferences, and preferences is where it's going to allow you to log back in. So that account that you just created online, you're going to use that same information to log in here on the mobile app, and you're going to hit retrieve IMAP list. And basically this is just the way to sync all your information together. And I recommend you doing this every single time you open the iMapInvasive app, just in case if there's been any updates, or if you've used the web browser and you want to make sure that all of that data that you've been using is now obtainable on your smartphone. So that's where you would go just to just to basically sync all of your information. And if you're having any issues logging in, one thing I've heard that sometimes the iPhone does put an extra space behind the password. So if you're getting any errors, just be careful typing in your password. There might be an extra space there. And still on that preference page, if you scroll down a little bit more, you're going to see you have the option just to customize the app a little bit more. And there you can either change, you could put the scientific name or the common name for the species. And IMAP does this really cool thing where you can create a species list. So let's say you're about to go out and you know that I want to go look for spotted lanternfly, tree of heaven, water chestnut, and jumping worm. So you could go into this customized species list and just select those species. So when you're out in the field collecting data, you won't have to scroll through hundreds of species trying to look for the species you want to collect data on. So it gives you the option to customize it that way. And everything else on the preferences, I would typically leave alone there. I usually don't change them. It's just picture quality and like if you would prefer satellite image or a road. So these are just things that you could customize, and you find that in the preference section. So now I'm going to go over how to create an observation. And I do want to show you that I do want to point out that connectivity is not required. So this is wonderful for those of us who are constantly out in the field. And sometimes we can find ourselves in areas where we have little to no cellular connection, like a real dead zone. That doesn't mean that we can't still collect observations. So this app still works without any cellular connection. So to do that, you just hit add observation at the top right, and then you'll see a screen that looks like this. And the first thing that it's going to prompt you to do is to either take a photo or you can select a photo from your library. And then after that, you're going to select what the species is, and you're going to select is that species detected or not detected. And I implore you not to skip the detected, not detected part because that's still valuable information. Let's say if you're looking at your data set after you're done surveying and you didn't plot non-detected information, it might just look like you have a hole in your data and you're wondering what happened there, and you might schedule time to resurvey that area, which you might not need to do if you had said that the species you were looking for wasn't there to begin with. So let's say you had gone out looking for tree of heaven and you didn't find any tree of heaven. That's a great way you can drop points saying that tree of heaven was not detected. And now you also have a better understanding of the boundaries of that particular invasive species, that we've only seen it in this area and it hasn't encroached to other areas. So that's the power of also plotting non-detected points as well as detected points. So they both are quite valuable. And I recommend you doing that in your regular surveying activities. And when you scroll down a bit more, you're going to see a map. And each entry will automatically use your current location, but you can manually change that if that's not where the species is. So this is what the map would look like. And let's say if you were out in the field and you didn't have any internet connection, or any wireless connection, this might actually appear to be blank. This whole entire screen may be blank and your coordinates may be set to 0, 0. That can be two things. Either you don't have cellular connection or you may have not enabled your location and given IMAP access to use your location. So that's something that you would have to double check on your phone settings. And the GPS location is vital for this app because that's where they'll be able to plot the exact point where that species was found. So it is imperative that you do enable your location settings there. And lastly, with this section, if you are a part of an organization or a part of a project, this would be your chance to add those numbers. But if you're not familiar with your organization or being a part of a project, you can leave those blank. But here you can also add how long you spent surveying, and you can add any additional comments about your observations and like the area. And definitely don't forget to save your data. So, sorry. And once you have all your data points, this is what your screen will look like. It would look like this first box over here. And I do want to point out that in order for you to upload these records, you do need to be connected to some sort of Wi-Fi connection. So definitely this is an activity that you do once you're back at the office or back in an area where you have Wi-Fi. And all of your species that you were collecting observations for will appear like this. And let's say if you did have to edit your observation, either adding more pictures, adding comments, you can do that by pressing this pencil icon, and then that allows you to edit it. And then once you're all ready and you've done all your edits and you're ready just to upload it, you're gonna go back to our hamburger icon up here, our main menu icon, and you're gonna select upload selected. So you would have to toggle off each one of the species, check them off, and then it's going to ask you, are you sure? And you say, yeah, of course you're sure. And then it's going to disappear, which is, and don't be alarmed, that's a good thing. That just means that your data has been uploaded to the iMapInvasives database. So no species listed here is a good thing. That means it's all there. And there's even more features to explore online using iMapInvasives. There you can view your observations across the entire region, and you can filter and see more than one species of interest. And there's you can even observe, you could also add treatments, you could add polygons, you could do a little bit more advanced things using iMapInvasives online. And you would just log in here, and then all of the data that you had on your phone would appear on this map as well. And with that, I am going to pass it off to Abby for survey 123.
Thank you. Yes, and thanks, Cassandra. That was a really awesome overview of invasive species and the IMAP app and iNaturalist. So I hope you guys are already inspired to map some species, but we're going to take it one step further with a little bit more of an slightly more advanced tool, but it's still pretty streamlined. So go ahead. Next slide. So one more app that we'll talk about today is called Survey 123, and it has that little green icon there. Survey 123 is an app by Esri, if you're familiar with GIS stuff. If not, don't worry. But it's called Survey 123, and it's an app that you could actually use for a lot of different surveys. So we have one survey with iMapInvasives that we put into the app. So it's great to use for making more detailed observations. Also great for use on your phone. The best thing about this is that you can use it to make points, lines, or polygons. So say it's best captured to, if you want to record information about a population that you see, you really want to know exactly where it is and how far it goes. You might want to draw a polygon around it, basically just a shape around the population that you see. You could also use this to put in treatment records and to track management. So I think that this could be very useful for any managers that are on the call, and hopefully you find some use out of it. So the first step is to download this Esri Survey 123 app from your phone's app store. It's good for Apple, good for Android, and it's a very clean look to the app. So I think that's why we like to share it too, because the other iMap app might not be, maybe it looks like a little bit old, but this one looks very nice and clean and streamlined. So we also, then once you download the app, you get the iMapInvasive survey on your phone using this link. There's a QR code there, but there's also a short link below. And that's how you get the survey into the app that you just downloaded. Next slide. Also, I'm going to do a demo of this, so if anything seems like it's going too fast, you'll get to see it again from looking at my phone. So here are some of the things that it asks. It asks general questions about your iMapInvasives account information. Um, so that's good. You already got that if you've already signed up. It asks information about the observation date, which would be today by default, and your state, which for this presentation is New York. And to save time at this point, you can set some of these answers as your favorite, so you don't need to re-enter the information every time. Next slide. So here's where it can get a little bit more advanced. There's two options that you could use in this app, either doing simple data collection or advanced data collection. So in simple data collection, it's very similar to the app that Cassandra just highlighted, in which you could just put a point and say what you found there. And it will automatically put in this searched area, assuming that like you kind of looked around a little bit, but the point here is like the main thing that you want to be reporting. For the advanced data collection option, which might be more useful if you want to really be recording detailed observations for your own work or your own property. For that, you can draw your own searched area, which is saying the main area that you are looking in. And then you could put in different points, lines, or polygons within that. And before those points, lines, polygons, you can then say what species were there. So that's like kind of like layer cake, if you will. Next
Mhm.
slide. So here's some of the information about entering the data. Like I said, the search area is telling the survey where you searched. Then presence point line or polygon is defining where you found the invasive species. Then there's another layer saying the present species. So you're telling the survey what the species is that you found. And then like before, when Cassandra was saying you could enter a record for a species you don't find, you could do the same thing here. You could say, I didn't find spotted lanternfly and include what you didn't see. And then there's some supplemental data of adding things like photos, comments, information on the number found, evaluation type, follow-up, impact of invasive. There's a lot of supplemental data you could add to this. So it could be as detailed of an observation as you want if you really need those numbers, or you want to report on those things. That's all in there. But and so the more we always encourage, the more data you can include, the better. But sometimes you're in a rush and you don't need maybe as all of those fields. So it's kind of up to you. Next slide. Now for the treatment area, this is different on this app. You could do it on this app, but you can't do that on that first iMapInvasives app that Cassandra was saying. But you can put in a treatment area on this. So that's saying where did you control invasive species? What species were you aiming to control? And then other supplemental data like the date, the treatment iteration. Is it your first time? Is this the third time? The goals that you have, any comments, any precautions you took to protect rare species, any information you want to include about permits and treatment type. Next slide. And then when you've entered all the data, similarly to that previous IMAP app Cassandra was talking about, you can do this offline and you can save it in your drafts and send it in when you're back in connectivity. So let's say you want to save it, come back to it later. You can always X out and save it in the drafts. If you're finished, you click the check marks and it will highlight if you miss any required fields. Um, and you could say, like I said, save it in your outbox for later. Then when you hit send, in about an hour, your data will be online in iMapInvasives as an unconfirmed record. One thing we didn't mention is that a lot of things go in as unconfirmed, and there's actually people on the other end that will confirm it. And LIISMA is some of those people, but it's other people in New York State as well. So there is the human aspect to this. Next slide. All right, now for the fun part, where I get to show you my phone. Please hold while we do some screen turning around. All right, so Survey123 is this nice little green app here. And
I don't know if you're sharing your screen yet, Abby.
oh, thank you. Let's see, it does say that I'm screen sharing. Let me just try to do that again. Maybe if you stop sharing Cassandra, that
Oh,
might
you
help
got
too.
it. Sorry.
No worries. All right, let me try that one more time.
I
How about
think
that?
I finally did it.
Great. Okay, so I just clicked on that green app. You won't see as many surveys as this. You'll just see that one that's in the upper left corner where you can see I use this app for a lot of things. So this is what the iMapInvasives one looks like. Like that logo looks kind of familiar. And you're just going to start by hitting collect. So it's going to start with there's a lot of drop downs here. It's kind of some general questions about your iMapInvasives account. So I do know my ID and I can put that in, but it gives some help information if you don't know it or you need help finding information about your account. You could also click no and then just put in your name and email address, and that will, if you have an iMapInvasives account, that will be able to locate you. So we fill those in. Dee-dee-dee-dee. Um, you'll see similarly, there's things about project IDs. If you don't have a project or don't know what that is, feel free to skip it. It will automatically enter the date to today's date and time. And then you'll also need to select New York because iMapInvasives is actually in multiple states, so this helps narrow things down a lot. Like I mentioned before, you could also save your favorite answers, and they have a drop-down favorite feature help for showing you how to do that. So you could always reference their help information in the survey, but I know how to do that by clicking our little hamburger icon in the upper right corner and hitting set as favorite answers. I could also click paste answers from favorite because I had that before. And there we go. I have my name and email automatically populated. So that's cool. Now we can choose between simple and advanced data collection. I'm actually going to go with advanced for those on the call who want to see that. So that's already selected. And I'm going to start with drawing my searched area. So they want me to create a polygon. Here I am where I live in Hewlett. And again, these are all just like test purposes. I'm not going to submit this, but let's just draw a nice big polygon. And I'm doing this just by clicking the screen, clicking points, um, just clicking points on the screen. If I need to edit something, say that point's not really where I want, I can go to where this little pencil is. I can move it around. I'm just clicking and dragging to be able to adjust this. And then when I'm done, I hit the one with the check mark in the bottom right corner and I click the check mark again. And you can verify, does that really look like where I surveyed? I'd say yes for the purposes of this, but you could always go back and edit it before you submit your survey. Now I want to say some things about that searched area, like the name of the site, um, and there's lots of site details that can be about things like the weather, the ownership of the area, if there's any disturbance there, and they have some descriptors for what kind of disturbance might be at the site that might influence the invasive species that you see, right? If there's native vegetation, if the landscape type, things about your crew, if that's something you're tracking, things about the weathers, as I mentioned, if you need to follow up on this information, if there's a treatment needed. And so again, this might be something that you kind of go back and add more things as you finish your searched area. So we'll keep this open. We'll actually toggle that closed. So we've told this survey, this is where I looked. Now you're going to say, what did I find? And here's where you put in presence records. So it asks you, would you like to put in a point, polygon, or line? Let's put in a line. And like before, we're going to do some drawing on your phones. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to get a really good line. And let's say I found invasive species all right next to the school across the street from me. Oop. Okay, so put them in the wrong place, but this is a good chance for me to actually shift where those points are. So everything is undoable. There we go. Let's say I put it all across the street from the school. That's where I found it, and I like that. So now I just have a line. I didn't actually tell the app what is there yet, and that's what comes next for the present species, right? So for here, I'm going to put in a fake species for testing, but you can just type something in, start typing, and it will come up the species that you're looking for. And of course, you could put things like photos. It gives some cues on what photos are the most helpful for identifying, like a close-up, general, and infestation. Things about the time searched, number found, things about the evaluation, impact. Probably you're not doing anything with biocontrol, but that's there just to know. Other things about plants in particular that's useful information. And intentional planting, yes or no, this could actually be very useful. And we love this question because on Long Island, there could be plenty of, as we mentioned, maybe some ornamental species that can have invasive tendencies. And it is helpful to know if you think, oh, this is in a garden bed versus I found this in the middle of the forest. I know it's not intentionally planted. So we love that question. Fill that in if you can. Now, the beauty of this is, let's say on that line, I also saw another species on the same line. I can hit the plus button here and add information on another species on that same line. But let's say I accidentally hit that. Oops, I'm going to hit the trash can. I didn't actually see another species. I'm just going to hit delete, and it should just say back to having one of one records. Okay, now before it gets too complicated, we've got a line, we've got a searched area. Let's say also within our searched area, we want to put in a point. It was way far away from that line. We need to be able to represent that a fake species was in one other location. So I'm going to go to this little add additional presence locations, press the plus button. I'm going to put my point in. I'm going to put it on my map. I'm going to zoom in and whoop. And it was pretty far away. It was like all the way over here. There we go. And same thing as ever, putting in the information about the present species that you found. So forgive my scrolling. As mentioned, also not detected records are there. It's going to be pretty self-explanatory for that, but I just wanted to take one more second to talk about treatments applied. So we can use the entire searched area for this treatment record. Let's say we treated everything that we found in our polygon. Then we can click yes, and that's a nice little shortcut. There's my polygon. That looks exactly like what I just made. And we can type in, again, our treatment target species. It should be a species that you've already reported just so the data likes it. Treatment begin date, end date, if it happened multiple days, that's important to know. The iteration, goals, permits, and then there will be more information if you click the difference between physical, chemical, and biological. I think a lot of the work we're going to do is physical, so I'll show what some of those options are. Mechanical and manual is a very common one, but you should always plant natives. And then it has more information about how you treated it. Again, this is all for your use pretty much when it comes to a treatment method. It's for your reference, so you can go on iMapInvasives once you submit this online, and you can see all the treatments that you did that year. You can download them if you need a report at the end of the year. So the amount of information that you put in when it comes to treatment is really mostly for your own reference looking back. All right. So we're happy with that treatment. We did a lot of work today. We surveyed invasive species. We are ready to complete our survey. And so we're going to hit the check mark. It doesn't like that I saved one species. So you see, it actually took me back to the top of the survey to say, wait, you didn't fill something in. Okay, so now it'll probably be happy with it. And it says survey completed. So we can send it now. We can continue the survey. Say, I didn't mean to hit the check button. That happens to me all the time when I'm doing this actually, is that I didn't mean to hit the check button yet. So I go back to continue the survey. Or I want to review it later, or I'm not in Wi-Fi right now. I'm going to hit save in outbox. Then it brings me back to my home page and I can go to my outbox. And let's say I am ready finally to submit it. I can click on that survey again. Oop, we don't want to delete it. Actually, just click on it, not the hamburger, but just over it. Completed survey. Do I want to edit the survey? So you actually do go back into the edit, click the check mark again. Whoop. Saving drafts. I think I actually just clicked the wrong one here. Anyway, that's when you would do, you would hit send when you're ready to send, basically. I'm getting a little funny error here, but you'd hit send when you're ready to send. And that's what we've got for survey 123. I'm going to stop my sharing. Boop, boop, boop. All right. And with that, oh, Cassandra's got the slides.
Yeah.
There's a race to see who would get them. We'd say thank you.
And
Great job,
thank you
Abby.
guys. That was excellent. And I know I learned a lot. So it's something that we want to start mapping more at the refuge. I saw a few questions. but maybe they already got answered in the chat. And I just wanted to, open it up for questions. If anyone has a question, feel free to, you could either type it in or you should be able to unmute yourself for a question. And in the meantime, I'm just going to send both the Refuge website and the LIISMA website so that you can click there. And LIISMA has a great newsletter that they send out too with upcoming events and a lot of great invasive species information. So if you go to their website, you can sign up for their emails as well as Refuge emails for upcoming events and keeping you updated on all things Quag Wildlife Refuge. Okay, so we'll see if there's any questions.
Kara,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Dana here. I'm
Dan.
just trying to raise my hand. I couldn't. I think that's Google or Teams, not Zoom. Anyway, so I'm quite thank you that both of those were really wonderfully presented, concise, informative presentations. So thank you both to Cassandra and Abby for doing that. I feel pretty comfortable with the iMapInvasives. I've already downloaded it and set up my account. I'm less clear, Abby, on how on your app and how it relates to iMapInvasives, if at all.
No, good question. It is related. And it's basically just another way, a different way to input the data, but it goes to the same place.
It does. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm embarrassed to say this. What is the name of the second app that Abby you led us through?
Yeah, that was called
If I could go
Survey
back to
123.
Survey 123. Got it. I
Yes.
haven't had a chance to download that one from the App Store.
Mhm.
That it's a little bit more detailed, and so it's going to take a while to work through that. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Survey 123.
Thanks, Dana. There was a question from Brian. Is it worth reporting common invasive species?
I would say so. I think I feel like sometimes we have a general sense in our heads of what's common and what's not, but you only really know that when you look at the data. And we have a lot of data gaps out there where we constantly, every year, do a reassessment of our local rankings of invasive species, that tier list that Cassandra was mentioning. And we have to kind of tell the upstate people, like, actually, there's more than that than is reported. So it actually helps, even if it's a common species, it helps to help everybody know how widespread some of these things are. So we appreciate that. Any observation is a good observation. Even if it's a not detected record, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
I had a question, Abby and Cassandra. When you would use Survey 123, say we were using it as an organization, would you be able to go in and see your records in iMapInvasives, or would it be more beneficial to just log into iMapInvasives and use it that way for like record keeping of your own sightings?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's where I would go to it on like their desktop on the online. I don't know if that's what you were referring to. But that's a great way where you can filter to your own observations. You could download a report. We didn't have time to cover everything in this presentation, but there's a lot that you can do online as far as assessing things that you've already done or things that other people have reported on the refuge, for example.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't see any more questions, but I'll definitely send out this recording to everyone who signed up, and I'm sure Abby and Cassandra would be happy to answer any additional questions, and us too via email. Feel free to reach out. And I think it's great that a lot of us are minded towards citing invasives because it is a big issue that not everyone knows about. But Anna said that in the chat that her entire hill by the Beach Association is covered in Japanese knotweed. Should it be reported, do you think?
I would say yes.
Mm.
I would say it can't hurt. It can only help. And a lot of what we do is coordinating management. So sometimes we send a report that is of concern to a town and try to help get management. So no guarantee there, but we try to do our best to coordinate management when we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Do you have a lot of events coming up for NYISAW this week?
Go ahead,
For
Connor.
NYISAW, to actually today there was a guided walk that was at West Meadow Beach, and most of the rest of our NYISAW we have some virtual presentations that folks, if you joined us today, you might be interested in watching some more Zoom presentations that are available rest of the week. So you could definitely visit LIISMA's events page, and all of them are listed there. So definitely keep an eye out for our newsletter. There's going to be a nice recap of all of the NYISAW events that we helped host and that some of our partners are hosting. I believe North Shore Land Alliance has an event tomorrow called Save a Tree. So basically what they're trying to do is remove invasive vines that are currently girdling trees on their preserves. So if you're interested in doing some volunteering and want to get out there, definitely go check out North Shore Land Alliance. Their event is posted and it's also reposted on our website if you want to be more active this week. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. And hopefully we'll see you at the refuge soon. And thank you all
Definitely.
for joining us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Right.